Shoppers crave personalized experiences from the brands they love, and a great mobile app from favorite brand does exactly that. And that is where you need IMSHOP. Fast launch with any e-commerce platform, utilize advanced loyalty programs, retain customers with community, improve conversion with content, assist your customers anytime. Best thing about IMSHOP, you can launch a fully functional mobile app with all the benefits in just 6 to 8 weeks due to ready integrations. Join many retail leaders who already use IMSHOP. IMSHOP.AI, apps for e-commerce and retail.
Okay.
Hey, hello everybody and welcome to the podcast. My name is Filip Lipkowski. I'm the host of the show, and today I have a very exciting guest for you. The retail prophet himself, Mr. Doug Stevens. Hey, hello Doug.
Hi, how are you, Philip?
Very good. Thank you very much for finding time for us today and joining the podcast.
My pleasure.
Thank you. For those viewers and listeners who maybe don't know you yet, can you please give us a little bit of bio about yourself?
Sure. I'll give you the hopefully the short tour. My name is Doug Stevens. I'm the founder of Retail Profit. Retail Profit is a global consultancy in the retail industry that focuses primarily on the intersection of demographics, technology, media, and economics. We've been around for about 16 years. Our clients include brands like L'Oreal, BMW, Walmart, Google, a number of other very large corporations that we help in the building of strategy in the retail and consumer market. I've written now 4 books on the future of retail, including my upcoming book, which is going to be dropping this June, that is called The Future of Competitive Advantage, a business plan to save your customers, your company, and democracy. And that's going to be released by Wiley, as I said, in June of 2026. So that, in a nutshell, is me.
Wow. And a very big name for your new book, and I'm very excited. And hopefully, you can give us a little bit of hint of behind the book and
You bet.
the plot of the book. Cool. So let's jump right into it. And I had a little bit of the intro. I've read a little intro of your book, and it is like a big topic that seems you're trying to get at with this book, and it argues that trust and fairness are like the next source of competitive advantage. Because as I understand, you're trying to balance the business and retail side in this book together with a lot of the things probably that going on around the world in our societies, etc. So, what is the biggest misconception that businesses have about trust and about this thing as a competitive advantage today?
Sure. So let me back up. I'll try and give listeners a little bit of context here. So here's what the next time you're in any city, whether that's Amsterdam or Toronto or New York City or Beijing, whatever you like, go to a street corner and stop and look around. Just take a moment and look around at everything in your field of vision, because everything that you're looking at, the skyscrapers, the businesses, all of the automobiles, even the little supercomputer in the palm of your hand, all of those things are really the consequence of a very brief but remarkable period in history. That period being the post-war era, which was about 30 years following the war, 1945 to 1975. And the hallmark traits of that period of time were that governments really made a bet on society. And they invested principally in 3 things that powered an era of mass prosperity. Those 3 things were trust in government, trust in the media ecosystem, trust in business through legislation and guardrails and consumer protections and worker protections. All of these things imbued society with a new level of trust that they certainly didn't have pre-war, because they were just coming out of a terrible, terrible depression that affected not just North America, but certainly Europe and other parts of the world as well. So, big, huge bipartisan investments in trust. The second piece was fairness. Fairness for workers, union protections, worker protections, uh, minimum wage guidelines, things of that nature. Workers' compensation. If you were injured on the job, now all of a sudden you were protected. Protections for consumers, consumer protections around products and services, and even protections for markets. Things like the Federal Trade Commission in the United States was set up in that post-war era to protect investors against the kind of things that happened prior to the Depression. The last piece was intelligence. There was also this massive investment in allowing people to go to university. Many people didn't have access to university before the war. In the post war environment, we saw more people going to university, more people studying for longer, staying in the education system for longer, huge investments in education. The reason all of this matters is because this remarkable 30-year period of trust and fairness and intelligence powered a vast amount of innovation. It powered huge increases in people's incomes and in their livelihoods. We saw the birth of what is today regarded as being the modern middle class, the largest middle class in history. And that, of course, led to this era of incredible prosperity where we saw companies like Walmart go from being a tiny little five and dime store in Bentonville, Arkansas, to becoming a global giant. It gave rise to Steve Jobs and Apple and Starbucks and Howard Schultz and all of these industry titans that we know today. But from about 1980, I argue in the book, forward, we stopped investing in those things. We stopped investing in trust, fairness, and intelligence. And instead, we started investing more in efficiency and in scale and in technology and in programs like offshoring labor and manufacturing. We sort of began drawing on those investments in trust, fairness, and intelligence and stopped making contributions. And today, what I argue is that we are bankrupt, that global trust today is at an all-time low. And that is trust in everything, trust in democracy, believe it or not, trust in government, trust in the media, trust in business, even trust in our fellow citizens, all-time low. Our sense of fairness has been eroded by 45 years of seeing corporations reward their shareholders at the expense of their workers. We've seen the richest get vastly richer while the majority of society has stagnated in terms of their wages relative to inflation. And in terms of intelligence, we really stopped making significant investments in our education systems. Education became a luxury once again that only a very small segment of society could afford without going into significant debt. And the outcomes of education today are actually failing as well. We're seeing that from about 1990 forward, student results at an international level have actually been declining in Western economies. We are literally becoming dumber. And there are a whole bunch of reasons for that. Technology is part of it. The emphasis that we place on teachers and the compensation we afford teachers and even the curriculum itself. The bottom line is the reason all of this matters is that I believe that these frontiers of trust, building businesses that consumers and your vendor partners and your local communities of operation can put their faith in, put their trust in, because you've earned that trust. That the era of fairness, where your employees, your shareholders, your stakeholders, all stakeholders feel that you are going to deal with them in a fair and even handed way. And intelligence, where you are actually now bringing in the kind of skills that you're going to need in a post AI environment where you're stocking your ranks now with critical thinkers, problem solvers, and creatives that can actually use the technology in a way that gives you an advantage. My belief is that those are the things that are going to power the next era of competitive advantage. So, I think most companies, when they think about trust, they think, well, that applies to our product, right? We want consumers to trust that the product we make is good. It's guaranteed, that they can trust our warranties and that sort of thing. Well, that's part of it. But true, what I call in the book, radical trust, radical level of trust means that every aspect of the company is transparent, is accountable, and is trustworthy. And that goes right from your political affiliations and your political contributions all the way through to how you treat every single stakeholder in your ecosystem. So those are what I see as being the new frontiers of competitive advantage. And in the book, I provide a business plan that can actually help businesses take the steps necessary to build advantage on each of those frontiers.
Wow. Yeah, thank you. It's hard to argue with, yeah, we're with all of the statements, and I guess we are finding ourselves as a society in this particular point, and all of the technologies that were meant to make everything more transparent, faster, in the end of the day made it less transparent and sometimes faster, but not that clear for all the participants in the chain, and that is true. But I want to ask you about, there is a reason why Walmart grew. It's convenient. There's a reason why Starbucks grew, and small mom and pop shops or like cafes, um, well, they vanished because from a business standpoint, maybe they were less savvy than, and they had less investment. But from a transparency standpoint, the consumer chose the larger corporations, the larger companies who came in with less transparency, but more convenience, faster times, more predictable product. And looking at Amazons of the world and marketplaces, how they're storming and booming and like becoming this place where you buy mostly everything. It's very interesting. What is your take on this balance between convenience that people choose versus the true transparency and fairness that they're seeking, maybe from retailers?
Um, so I think we have to, yeah, it's a great question, and I think we have to look at it as two distinctly different issues. Um, on the one hand, we have the question of value, right? What is it that consumers um, look for when it comes to value? You mentioned Walmart. From 1962 to about 2014, Walmart had a tremendous track record, right? Tremendous track record for growth. Um, their value was and continues to be extremely clear. Walmart, from its inception, was a company that was built to serve a middle class consumer and to save that consumer money. And I mean, they emblazoned it right on the front of the building, right? Um, but I think that the first slogan was um, low price always, or something like that. Today it's save money, live better. But it's always been the North Star of that company to save the consumer money. They've been extremely clear in articulating that value to consumers throughout decades of operation. They've never sort of diverted from that sense of value. Amazon, from its inception, has always been about having the vastest assortment of products available with the highest level of convenience. And again, Amazon has never, argued that you're going to get a rich immersive experience shopping on Amazon. That is not who they are. It's not who Bezos has ever tried to make them. They are the largest store in the world with the most products, and you can have them on your doorstep, in a matter of hours now in some places. So they are two very good examples of businesses that have thrived because they have identified a legitimate consumer need, price, and convenience, and they have delivered on that need consistently. Come hell or high water, they deliver on that promise to consumers. There are other needs that consumers have as well, though. Those happen to be two sort of cognitive needs. I want something cheap or I want it fast. But we also have emotional needs. We have the need to engage with companies that we feel represent our values, right? And there you have a great example in a brand like Patagonia, a brand that sells things that other brands sell, but Patagonia is a brand that exists really for a purpose, and that purpose is environmental protection. So they galvanize a tribe of consumers that value environmental protection and therefore defer to their brand instead of another brand, perhaps like North Face or someone else. There are other brands that are really experts in providing entertainment. They sell what other retailers sell. They might sell what Amazon sells in its marketplace, but they create an environment where the consumer can have a lot of fun shopping for the things that they sell. A great example of that is a brand like Camp. Camp is a toy store based in the tri-state area in the United States, but it's an immersive experience for children and their families. It's not like a Toys R Us where you had just racks and racks of toys on shelves. There are other brands that really excel at giving the consumer a sense of confidence and security in the choice that they're making because they really have deep expertise. And here I always point to a brand like B&H Photo and Video in New York City, world renowned for their expertise in selling audio and video equipment. And then finally, brands that just simply design a better experience. They really thrive on design and provide you with a better shopping experience, and in some cases, a better fundamental product, like a brand like Dyson, for example, would be a good example. So, I guess what I'm saying here is that is really a question of how do consumers choose value. Okay, let's put that on the shelf for a minute. The other question around, do I trust the company that I'm doing business with? This, I think, is a more recent notion. I think that we are moving into a period of time where consumers are beginning to ask the question, does this company work in the best interests of society or not? And I think a lot of people, frankly, are asking that question about Amazon today. Is Amazon an honest player? Can I trust them with my children's future? These are the kinds of questions now I think consumers are asking. It's not simply about, do they sell the thing that I need? Because product, again, is becoming ubiquitous. We are beginning to make decisions about the trustworthiness of companies, whether or not a company treats its workers with fairness, whether or not it treats communities of operation with a level of fairness. These are the questions, I think, that are going to become more and more pressing for corporations. We have to remember something else as well, Philip. And I'm sorry for all the long-winded answers, but they are big questions. For many, many years, corporations were black boxes, right? You only knew what they published in their quarterly reports, or maybe in their ESG reports. You would get some insight into the corporation. Maybe there would be an investigative journalism piece that dug into some of the malfeasance that was going on within companies. But for the most part, You knew what the company allowed you to know. But we are now embarking on a period of time where if I wanted to know every single instance where Amazon has been sued by a union, I can call that up in an instant. I can have ChatGPT provide me with an entire table of every active lawsuit that is pending against Amazon, the nature of that lawsuit, whether or not there have been statements by corporate executives relative to those. In other words, I can become now an investigative journalist and know everything there is to know about any company on earth. So we are now into a completely different level of table stakes on the part of companies to be trustworthy, fair, and to stock their businesses with the right level of intelligence to power them into the future. So, I hope that answers the question, but I think they are two completely different issues.
Yeah, 100%. But them being two different issues, um, people still. So Amazon is still growing, and I don't remember exact number, but more than 10%. And it shows that people choose this convenience, even though they can search in LLMs. The amount of maybe not the best days of this or that corporation, but they're choosing this convenience. And um, there is the only thing that is growing faster than Amazon these days seems to be TikTok Shop and Sheen and platforms like this. And I also want to know your thoughts on this TikTok kind of like experience that also is shopping experience these days. So people, this is the place where you first find out about brands and retailers these days, online in a short video format. And yes, the this kind of like openness and trustworthy content in this sector, I believe, is something very important, because I believe that people can smell, if that's not true, or if that's fabricated, if that's not authentic, from a mile away. And it's harder to easily, like, mislead the customer through the TikTok shop, or means of communication like this. What are your thoughts on this? What segment will it take in retail? And do you write anything about this trend in your book?
So in 2013, I wrote a book called The Retail Revival. And in that book, I was doing a lot of speaking about this at the time as well. I basically said in the future, people will stop searching for products because products will begin searching for people. And my feeling was that at the time, there was enough evidence to suggest that algorithmic um, product listings would begin to track down consumers by virtue of their interests, by virtue of the other websites and web properties that they had visited, essentially that they would be looking for a particular kind of consumer profile. And that's exactly what has happened over the last 12 years. And I mean, at the time, I have to say that even at that time in 2012, 2013, there were people that thought I was out of my mind. That, what do you mean people won't have to look for products? Products are going to look for them? Yeah, by virtue of the content that we're ingesting. So that was sort of stage one, right? That all of a sudden we had this reverse funnel. The old marketing funnel was, my awareness is built. I become aware of a product because I go out and I search for it, and then or I see a piece of advertising on television, and that kind of pushes me down the funnel. Now we've got it where the product is looking for you and trying to push you down the funnel much faster. I think where this goes is we are now embarking on the realm of digital assistance, where it's not even going to be a matter anymore of me just happening to see a TikTok video that piques my interest in a product, but where I am literally saying to my digital assistant that I am subscribed to and that works on my behalf, I'm interested in finding a new luxury wristwatch. Tell me what the best options would be for me in my price range, and it is literally scouring the universe to find the best options for me, bringing those choices to me in a way that I trust. And if one of those options is a brand I've never heard of, I may go right from the initial awareness of that brand right through to purchase. I don't even need all the other marketing that may have taken place between those 2 points to try and get me interested in the product. If I have enough trust in my digital assistant to find what's right for me, I'm just going to take that recommendation and go with it. So what we're seeing is a complete upheaval of the media ecosystem, of the advertising ecosystem. And in the case of AI, we may see a complete short circuiting of that entire marketing funnel as we have known it for hundreds of years. Um, so retailers, have to now adjust to this new ecosystem where a lot of the things that they invested in before, the millions upon millions of dollars they invested in, trying to romance consumers into a decision, those dollars may not be necessary anymore. It may be more about making investments in the empirical data that an AI shopping assistant is going to need to see in order to make the recommendation of your product.
But isn't that the scary element that for retailers and brands, it kind of becomes easier to manipulate the algorithm, at least in the beginning of what we know today, because sometimes we see how ChatGPT or others can be quite biased in terms of what information they're giving you because they're still taught and they're operating in the field of knowledge created by people, by other people with different intentions. And if a certain narrative is just happens to be all over the internet, this is what the model will catch and what it will feed to your AI agent. So isn't that making the whole chain less transparent for the end consumers in the end of the day?
I don't think so, and I would disagree a little bit with the premise of the question, and it comes down to what AI is being trained to look for. So if I look, and I'll give you an example. I was um, I was doing a talk recently. I will just say for a major manufacturer of food products. I won't name the company. One of those products is coffee, instant coffee, and they happen to be one of the largest brands in the world as it applies to instant coffee.
Well, I think that we can guess, but don't
I'll
tell
leave
them.
it. I'll leave it to people's imaginations. Their marketing budget on that product would be equivalent, I suspect, to the gross revenue of a lot of companies. Okay. So they spend a tremendous amount of money to put out into the market messages about that product and that brand. I did a search on Google. I just simply said, "Tell me what's the best instant coffee," and Google returned results, which included sponsored results, which included the product that I'm telling you about. I then went to Perplexity shopping, and I asked exactly the same question, and it brought back a different set of results, and that brand was not included, much to my surprise. I asked Perplexity why that wasn't put into the consideration set, given how popular it is. And it said, in no uncertain terms, you're absolutely right. It's a very popular brand, but it doesn't test very well
Hmm.
compared to other brands. Users don't like the taste of it. They say it's bitter, or it has these qualities that are not preferred. So it is not. We are out of the realm today of just simply littering the environment with sponsored messaging. That ship is sailing. And it is not to say that advertising won't play a role in some way, shape, or form. ChatGPT, OpenAI is already testing embedded recommendations, links to products within recommendations. But it comes back to, oddly enough, it comes back to trust. The way AI works today, that the reason I got those results on Perplexity with respect to that coffee maker is because it deprioritizes sponsored advertising. It looks instead for things that it can reasonably say are objectively true. Side by side comparisons, consumer reports, consumer reviews, that sort of thing. It is not deferring the way Google does to the 10 blue links at the top of the page, the sponsored ads. When OpenAI makes this decision around advertising, how it includes sponsored results, it is walking a tightrope of trust, because ultimately consumers are going to engage with the AI platform that they feel they can trust. And if we're talking about the different kind of subscriptions that you might get, you may pay for a subscription to an AI agent that is literally being paid to serve you, not the advertisers. So it is going to be looking for non-sponsored content that it believes is legitimate. So the premise of the idea that, well, AI is just going to look for whatever a company pays the most money to have out there, I don't believe that's true.
Yeah. And another interesting thing is that with AI, it's not like we used to using Google when you have a whole page of different, suggestions of different products, or a catalog in the marketplace where you have an endless list of whatever
Right.
you're searching for. It will be one to several options that will fit into what you requested
That's
from
right.
your AI agent. So that leaves a very, very narrow window of opportunity for the brand. They need to position themselves specifically for target audiences to actually, and yeah, here I start, agreeing with what you're saying, and I'm 100% agree. They have to be transparent to that target audience, 100% transparent, or 100% accurate for that particular request that the audience has. But what does it mean for a retailer? Because when you manufacture coffee, well, I don't know who doesn't like a good coffee, right? It's of course, well, people drink different drinks, and it's all wonderful. But like, coffee is coffee. But what?
Oh, wait a minute, Philip. I got to disagree with you
Yeah,
there.
okay,
I'm a hardcore coffee guy. Um, yeah, but your point is well taken. Yes.
yeah. But you know what I mean. Um, what should they do when when this becomes so narrow? The window of search, the window of opportunity to actually reaching out to your client becomes so narrow. And we're only talking about online right now. Of course, brick and mortar still lives according to its old rules, but more or less. But in terms of online, where all the search starts these days, um, uh, is that more of an opportunity or a challenge to brands and to retail, for brands and for retailers?
Oh, I think. Well, I mean, I think it's an opportunity for brands that build great products or offer great services. I think it's an incredible challenge for brands that build inferior products and services but rely on an advertising war chest
Mm,
to position those products as being superior.
mm,
That is really, I think, the conundrum that the market faces. If your product is indeed empirically better, I think this is your moment to really shine. And if you have, survived on the idea, I mean, think about, companies like Johnson and Johnson and Procter and Gamble and Kraft and Heinz and all these companies that look, for the most part, let's face it, they create a product that operates at parity, right? In most blind taste tests, their products wouldn't even be discernible, but they have literally uh, positioned those products as being superior by virtue of having an incredible marketing war chest. My hope is that we are now moving into a period of time where the smoke and mirrors begin slowly to dissipate, and where we are now into a system where if a product is genuinely better, that it has a shot at becoming the recommendation, even if it's not the enormous international brand that has the budget to convince us otherwise. But again, it depends on whether or not AI platforms ultimately side with sponsors or side with users. And that comes down to the level of trust that users are going to put in those platforms. So it's a very double-edged sword at this point. I'm not sure how it will work out. Just going back to a moment, however, to what we were saying earlier, consumers want what they want, and maybe, I think the point was, do they really care if a brand is trustworthy? Do they really care if the brand is fair? They want the product and they want the convenience, and so the brand is going to continue to sell. The retailer will continue to sell to them. I think that we have to also prepare for the idea that if a consumer is using a proprietary shopping assistant, that their values may be plugged in there too. That it's not just their product preferences, or their convenience preferences, but it may be that they want only fair trade product, that they want only products that are made by people who are earning living wages, or they want products from companies that have a good track record for pick your cause. So those things could be baked in to the recommendations that I'm getting from my personal shopping assistant as well.
Yeah, that's a very good point because ultimately people are asking ChatGPT everything, like I mean literally everything, and
Everything.
yeah, that kind of builds the persona, and this is actually every CRM oriented or like business dream is one person, one segment. This is
Mhm.
one person, one segment because everybody are a special snowflake. They will have a special, like a set of different things that they're interested in. Because if you're selling coffee, then sorry for returning to this. I'm also a huge coffee guy, so I cannot let go. um, uh, so with the coffee, for example, if you're searching for a coffee that is ethically sourced on one hand, but also you happen to be somebody who wants higher protein. Every product on the market these days has some kind of protein in it, and probably for a reason. And you want this and this and this. This will lead to manufacturer to come up with many lines of products because it's end of the era one product fits all. And probably maybe in like the cheapest segment, because the motivation is different, as you said, like the middle class and like the people who have the ability to choose from this position of like, okay, these are my values and I'm choosing according to my value. This is a huge privilege. And yeah, well, of course, but there are many people who are choosing because of the price and the affordability of the
Of
product. So
course.
I guess that there will
Absolutely.
be this kind of like segmentation. Do you agree with this?
Yeah, I mean, look, you're always going to have people who are willing to turn a blind eye to any sort of corporate, any sort of corporate missteps or violations because something is cheap. That will always continue, I think, to be the case. Um, we see evidence of that all around us every day. That there are very high profile instances where corporations violate public trust, and yet their quarterly results are pretty good. So that I don't think is necessarily going to go away entirely. But things don't have to happen absolutely in the world in order for them to have impact. If a company, and I'll go back to Amazon, for example, if only 20% of consumers were to move off of Amazon and over to Walmart because for whatever reason they felt that Amazon had done something that was unforgivable, that would be cataclysmic for Amazon. A 20% reduction in revenue would be a cataclysm. So uh, we don't need to think about these things in terms of will they change all consumer behavior, or will there still be people who defer to price or convenience? Of course there will. But even if a marginal percentage of consumers begin programming in a completely different criteria than they use today when they do a Google search, by virtue of the fact that AI can now provide them with more robust results that are maybe more tailored to their values and their sensibilities. That's going to change the ecosystem significantly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And like as a development of this thought, I want to ask you if you believe that brands will build more and more like own communities, because in this environment brands would want to quote unquote own their customer base. We tried to do that. We had an illusion that we have an email list and a text message list, push notification list, and this is our consumers because of this, which is obviously not. But some brands like Nike, for example, or many other brands, as we learn now on the podcast, like Lemure. We recently had this equestrian fantastic brand who built a mobile app around the sport, and they're basically having people returning to their app, the app of a retailer brand, 40 to 50 times a day. There is a
Sure.
supplement brand, Friends of Dorothy, who recently been on the podcast as well, from the UK, and they're building like a dating element into their product app, and etc. etc. So uh, businesses seem to try to build this environment of the community for their consumers. Do you also see this as a trend for retailers and brands?
Oh, yeah, I mean, certainly. Yeah. Most definitely. And you called out Nike, and Nike is a fantastic example of exactly that. I was a huge fan for a long time. I was doing half marathons, and so I was a huge fan of the mobile app and the community, and sort of keeping track of your progress and all of that stuff. So yes, absolutely. And I think that is even more profound today because we really do have a loneliness epidemic in society. People report feeling lonely, dislocated. Work from home certainly plays into that sense of disconnection from community. And so there is an opportunity for brands to step into the void and provide places and points of connection for consumers that are based on shared interests or shared values. No question. I think that, however, the caveat is that brands need to be very careful that if they are going to build a community, or they're going to purport to build a community, that it really must be something that provides some value of some kind beyond offers. If you're simply using it as a catch-all to kind of grab the consumer and then do nothing but to beat them to death with promotions and offers, then I think you're really missing the point. It's sort of like here, I'll raise another coffee analogy.
Please
It's
do.
sort of like how every business now has to have a cafe,
Oh yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
that every bank has to have a cafe, and every retail store has to have a cafe. What we don't want is for consumer communities to become like that you feel it's just a bolt on, that is a table stakes kind of thing. Everybody has a community, we must have one too. If you're going to have a community, then it really needs to provide that sense of um, of social purpose, social value in the consumer's life, some level of utility beyond just, we're going to be sending you more and more spam.
100%. And I would even say that most of the successful examples that I saw were community, so the community built first, and then the retailer just gave a place, like a shape to this community with a mobile app or a physical community or whatever that might be.
Well, and right, and I mean, to your point, if you look at, if you look at a brand like Glossier, for example, in the beauty category, I mean, that was a brand that started as a blog, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I think, if you begin as an editorial community, and you're drawing people not because you're selling them a product, but because you're providing them with information they feel is of value, that's a great starting point to build a retail proposition. But if you're just simply taking a retail proposition and trying to wrap it up in something that kind of looks like a half-baked community, that's where I think you're going to go wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. 100% agree. Listen, I know that unfortunately we cannot see the business plan. You will have to buy the book for that. We'll leave the link for the Amazon
It's
book.
extensive.
Yeah,
It's about 13 pages
I
in the
bet.
book is the business plan. Yeah.
But give us a little hint of like the businesses today. So this is the beginning of the year, 2026. A lot of businesses are sitting there and thinking, okay, everything is changing every like week, every month. It's very hard to plan anything. To make your strategy more resilient, what should a business look at in their business today? What are the main things that they need to pay attention to be more resilient?
I would argue this. I would say, look, if you sell a commodity product, if everyone in your organization looks at what you make or sell, and you all kind of shrug your shoulders and say, well, it's just a commodity, there is no there's no brand story to this. It's just a product. Then I say, okay, put it in as many marketplaces as you possibly can, cross your fingers and hope for the best. But if, on the other hand, you in your organization and your employees feel that you make a unique product, a distinct product, something that has value, something that indeed has a brand story, then you need to figure out what that brand story is, because we are in the story business. That's all business is. That's the only difference between one insurance company and another insurance company, is the story that the consumer is going to buy into. And it may be a story that your premiums will be lower. It may be a story that we care about you more than the other insurance company does. It may be a story about we'll insure more of your property and the aspects of your life that are important to you. Whatever the story is, you need to figure out what that story consists of. And then it can't just be a story on a piece of paper somewhere in your corporate headquarters. It has to be articulated in everything that you do, every decision that you make as an organization, every investment that you make needs to ladder up to supporting the articulation of that story in the market, so that the moment the consumer chooses you, maybe even before they choose you, they can feel it. They feel themselves becoming part of that story. And if you can do that, if you can construct that and draw that consumer in, you will win. And not only will you win, you'll command a premium for doing so. Because I can tell you this, after working for the last almost 20 years with a lot of the largest and most prestigious brands in the world, I can tell you that many, many brands out there have no clue what their story is beyond the last ad that they published. So it's an open opportunity. And if you can underpin that story with those fundamental societal needs for trust, fairness, and intelligence, you will absolutely crush it. So there's your 2026. Go do it.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you very much. I 100% agree with this. And myself as an e-commerce like professional for more than 10 years now, leading e-commerce in different retail organizations, I never felt that we need to work with marketing departments more than like all departments need to work together, of course, but like we all need to wear the head of marketing more and more these days, because the time of, yeah, e-commerce is about arbitrage. What is your customer acquisition cost on this platform versus this platform? What is the, click-through rates and things like this? And this is all just an equation for you. It doesn't. It for most of the brands, I'm sure that it doesn't work this way, and at least with a good margin, it doesn't. But once you have the story and once you can tell the story, it's amazing how a lot of brands finding ways to just really use marketing and no, marketing. We confuse marketing and advertisement a lot of ways, but they use advertisement as the small portion of their funnel in the beginning of the funnel for newcomers, but then they
Mhm.
work with the funnel with retention and with their existing customers more and more, and they want to buy more and more into the story that your product represents, and that's fascinating.
And I'll just give you one last
Yeah.
thought on that, on this notion of advertising. Understand this, and this is not my number. This is from the National Association of Advertisers
Mm,
out of the U.S. 64% of every dollar that you spend in programmatic advertising, wherever that may be, whether that's on TikTok or whether that's on Instagram, X, wherever you're spending it, 64% is never seen by a consumer.
mm,
It disappears, it vanishes, it gets eaten up in fees, bad placements, bad adjacencies, poor rendering on the page, whatever the case may be. 64%, to the extent that Procter and Gamble's head of marketing, Mark Pritchard, has basically said moratorium. We're not spending money, we're not wasting money on this anymore. We're going to pour it into product development and simply make better things. But let's assume that the consumer actually has a shot at seeing the 36% of advertising that actually makes it into their field of vision. They have 47 seconds of attention to give to you. 47 seconds is all we have today, clinically tested 47 seconds of attention, because we have so many other things to care about in our lives. So rather than just pissing money away in the advertising ecosystem, sit down, figure out your story. If you need to make your product better, do it, make it better. And so 5 years from now, when we're talking, you can say we're number one on ChatGPT's recommendations because we have a good product and a great story to tell.
yeah. Could not agree more. Doug, thank you very much for spending this hour with us and
My
telling us
pleasure.
more. Guys and girls, I remind you that there's a link in the description for the new book that is coming out this June, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Pre orders available now.
Nice, nice. So you know what to do, and please hit the like button if you liked what we discussed today. It was, if that was insightful. If you have any thoughts, let us know in the comments below, and subscribe to the channel, please. Doug, I really wish you a great day, and we'll be happy to read the book very soon, hopefully.
Thanks so much for having me, Philip.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.